Thank you for being with me at the intersection tonight. I bumped into a friend of mine today, about an hour ago, as I was finishing dinner with my family, who is very, very concerned about her right to vote and the Democrats and midterms. And it's a person that I use as a bellwether because she has very good instincts. And if she's worried, I know that the messaging around voter protection, elections, and databases is not where it should be. The Democrats not leading the charge strongly enough. And that's why I think it's so perfectly, exquisitely timed to have Marc Elias join me in about a half an hour to give some more confidence to our audience that if working together, we knit ourselves together, we protest together, we campaign together, we register to vote together, and we vote together, we will overcome all of the attempts to steal an election when all those things fall into place. So thank you to Sharon. I'm glad I bumped into you. It for many reasons, but one, it did motivate me for tonight. I have so many things I want to talk about that I've curated for you here at the intersection. Thanks for being such fervent supporters. The generosity of your time, your spirit, and sometimes your money is greatly appreciated. For independent journalists can only exist. You are the oxygen that we breathe. We can't exist without you. Let me kick it off with something. It's all linked to voting and Donald Trump's assault on voting. And of course, the Iranian war, where Donald Trump blithely tells the American people, oh, don't worry, the midterms won't impact my Iranian strategy. That presupposes there is an Iranian strategy. Trump got very angry today at a reporter, obviously a female reporter, when she said to him, Mr. President, what's the plan? Is there a plan? And then he put upon, is there something you don't know? Something I don't know? Is there a plan? I mean, she asked a very good question. I'm 1 degree separated from somebody that knows somebody this close to President Trump and is part of his inner circle. And that person said to that inner circle person, so what's the plan? And the person who's this close to Donald Trump said, there is no plan. There's no plan. It's Tuesday. That's the plan. And that was somebody, I can't reveal who it is right now, but when I finally am able to, completely consistent with this reporter, I don't think we have that clip, but completely consistent with that reporter's questioning and Donald Trump acting so put upon about being asked a fundamental question about his stewardship of this folly of a war that's already taken the life of almost 20 service people, probably more than 450 wounded, probably more, and more to come. And we're running out of missiles. That's not the reporting over the weekend. We're literally running out of munitions because we weren't prepared to go to war with Iran, especially the way that Donald Trump is navigating it. In fact, I think we have a clip of Trump today in the Oval Office talking about the war.
Looking at that, yeah.
Mr. President, there are no signs that Iran is ready to stop fighting. So what is the plan? Is the plan to just keep bombing until they give up?
There are no signs. Why, do you know something that I don't know?
Well, they continue to attack our allies.
You don't know what the dialogue is behind the scenes, that they want to meet desperately to try and end it because they're getting decimated. You don't get that when you listen to your fake station, but you don't know. You don't know anything.
So
you know something that I don't know? You know something I don't know?
Well, tell us.
I will tell you, they want to desperately meet, and until they're ready to meet in a meaningful way, we have no interest in even.
All right, so there's that clip. Right. So, she asked a very good follow-up question. So tell us, this is what, reporter scrums are supposed to be about, to educate the American people. Remember when in wars past, and I asked that, Ben and I were preparing for the show last Saturday, and we were talking about the war. And I said, well, where is Donald Trump's Norman Schwarzkopf? Where is his Colin Powell? Where is his general strategist briefing the American people on a daily basis about the war that's being conducted? There isn't one because there is no plan. There is no genius military strategist that's in charge. This is it, folks. This is, I'm showing you the magic trick. This is it. It's Pete Hegseth, a lieutenant general who was elevated to General Kane, and that's about it. And a whole bunch of other leaders who got tossed on their ass by Pete Hegseth because he was challenged. See, in my career, I've always wanted smart and smarter people than me around me. That continues. Oh, no, not Pete Hegseth. No. Your criteria for having a career under Pete Hegseth is that you are dumber than him. And we're watching the war play out. And does anybody really believe, Donald Trump, that Iran is calling him back channel and begging for the war to stop? Is that even a thing? I don't think so. And then we have the confirmation 9-8. See, elections matter. Of the new director of national intelligence, Jay Clayton. Everybody, come on down, Jay. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, I like to play golf with the president. I did that very well. Okay. I was the Securities and Exchange Commission chief in the first term. That was my dream job. Okay. And what is your background? Oh, I'm a corporate transactional lawyer. That's what I did my whole life. I did deals. Great. Are you leaving out anything about your national intelligence experience? A spy master, perhaps worked in the FBI, the CIA, the Directorate of National Intelligence before? Nope. Don't have any of that. I am a tremendous loyalist to Donald Trump, and I have, on occasion, including during my confirmation hearing, denied the election results. This is the new Director of National Intelligence, to which 17 different intelligence agencies, civilian and military, now report. And if you think he's an upgrade from Tulsi Gabbard, it's only because Tulsi Gabbard for years was rumored to be a Russian asset who was a puppet of Putin and read his talking points like she was a talking head on one of those news shows on Russian television. So I guess he's better than that. But if you thought, well, it'll be a breath of fresh air to have somebody else to which the CIA reports and advising Donald Trump, well, think again, because he got tripped up by one question that he should have saw coming a mile away, which is, are you an election denier or not? That's what we need to know before we make you the Director of National Intelligence, especially after Tulsi Gabbard was caught wearing her baseball cap, lurking around places like Fulton County, Georgia, and Puerto Rico, trying to take and grab voting machines, saying it was her job as the Director of National Intelligence. See, Trump is using the national intelligence community that he now controls, and the FBI and the Department of Justice, now led by him and a whole band of merry election deniers that all reside inside and outside the White House, right? Cleta Mitchell, write the name down. We'll talk about it more when Marc Elias joins us. A lawyer, election lawyer at some point, created something called the Election Integrity Network, the EIN, putting chapters in every state. And wouldn't you know it, there is an election integrity department inside the White House led by an election denier, Kurt Olsen. So many of the things that we're watching is this two-step play between Kurt Olsen and then the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. And that led to the seizure of equipment in Puerto Rico and in Georgia. And now you've got Jay Clayton. Jay Clayton at one time, he'd been like a prosecutor back in the day. He had some ethics. Gone, all gone. Watch Senator Ossoff of Georgia. Just ask a simple question and see the response for what could likely be on the 9-8 voting him out of committee today, our next Director of National Intelligence. Play the clip.
Yes.
Who won the 2020 election?
I'm not going to do this with you.
This is a job interview. We've established that you have an obligation to be honest and forthright with the committee. Yes, you do have an obligation to be honest and forthright with the committee?
Yes.
Who won the 2020 election?
Like I said, I'm not going to get into that with you.
But you do have an obligation to be honest and forthright with the committee.
Is anything that I just said not honest or forthright?
Yes, you're not being honest or forthright. Who won the 2020 election?
I think I've answered the question. We can keep doing this.
Well, we're going to keep doing it because you're not being honest and
No,
forthright.
I'm
with
not
the
going to
committee.
engage in the theater,
It's a simple question, Mr. Clayton.
and I've
Who
answered.
won the 2020 presidential election?
I've answered it.
You're here asking for the support of senators to lead America's intelligence community. We've established that you have an obligation to be honest and forthright with this committee and with the American public, but you refuse to answer a simple matter of fact about the 2020 election. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Then answer the question. Who won the
have
2020 election?
I have answered the question.
Answer it. What is your answer?
I've given you my answer.
What is your answer? You refuse to answer a basic question about who won a presidential election,
No,
but you asked to lead America's intelligence community? Isn't it humiliating to be unable to answer this question, to have to indulge the president's delusions? We know, you know, everybody in this room knows the truthful answer to that question. Why can you not give it?
I think I gave you the answer.
Are you aware that Director Gabb?
Right. I gave you the answer. I'm not answering the question. I'll kill my job opportunity. My job I'm trying out for with my main client, Donald Trump. I'm not giving you the answer. I love Senator Ossoff for so many reasons. By the way, he's up for election at the midterms. And a little bit of a programming note, his colleague, Reverend Senator Warnock, is going to be joining me tomorrow on Legal AF for an exclusive interview to talk about voting, voter protection, the United States Supreme Court, and his ideas of what the Democrats should do if they get all three branches of government. It's a must-see YouTube interview, podcast interview. And he's also going to be working hard to get his friend and colleague, Senator Ossoff, reelected. And I think we just saw the reason why we need him in the Senate. But it was a close vote, but it was 9 Republicans and 8 Democrats, or those that caucus with us, that confirmed that guy to be the director of national intelligence. Now a puppet, a tool of Donald Trump to be used in his attack on voting. No doubt about it. He's already used him as an attack on free press. You know what his parting gift was? You can, by the way, we're live. And when Marc Elias joins too, put your questions in comments tonight and our staff will flag it for me and put it up on a screen for me. And I'll try to answer as many as I can. You know what Jay Clayton, his parting gift to Donald Trump was when he was the acting the Southern District of New York, Manhattan federal prosecutor? The subpoenas against the New York Times reporters and their mothers, phone records and testimony before a grand jury as they try to get to the bottom of the leak of the anonymous sources the New York Times relied on to report that the Qatari Air Force One is unsafe at any speed, is unsafe to fly, and doesn't have the missile protection components and apparatus that all the other Air Force Ones have had. Oh, they got to get to the bottom of who leaked that. Who leaked that? You just look at the plane. I mean, there's a periodical that I look at for plane issues called Aviation Weekly. Go check it out. They have photos. It's not classified, of the tail and the back end of the real Air Force One, the baby blue one, with all of the anti-missile systems in place. And now look at the tail of the Qatari plane. The reality of, by the way, I was on the Qatari plane. That was a flying albatross that for a decade, the Qataris tried to sell. They couldn't find a taker until they gave it to Donald Trump. That plane was on the market for almost 10 years. It's a 14-year-old plane. Trump announced it as a $400 million gift. According to sources in the aviation world, at best, it was $150 million, maybe $200 million tops, because it was a depreciating asset. And then it needed to be retrofitted with $1 billion in 2 years worth of retrofitting. But of course, Donald Trump likes to cut corners on every building project he does. See reflecting pool, see ballroom, see Arc de Triomphe, see Kennedy Center. And so suddenly he cut a year off of the retrofitting and still the $1 billion. And then, there's 2 new Air Force Ones being delivered by Boeing, right? At the end of his term for the next president. And that's when he gets to say, and I'll be flying away. And the one we don't need. No, we don't need this Qatari one with $1 billion of taxpayer dollars. I'm going to fly it away to Miami, like the helicopters leaving Hanoi in Vietnam, or Nixon flying off after his disgraceful resignation. He's going to fly away, and he's going to try to anyway, in that Qatari plane. And so that was Jay Clayton's parting gift, right? Now, there's a motion to quash pending by the New York Times. Shout out to the New York Times, doing some tremendous reporting lately. Under fierce, they're taking heavy artillery from the presidency and from the Department of Justice. Heavy. Maggie Haberman, Jonathan Swan in the Situation Room, with recordings or transcripts about Epstein files and everything else. And now this. But a Judge Subramanian, Biden appointee in the Southern District of New York, has blocked for now and quashed for now those subpoenas until he can get his mind around with further briefing. And then I want to turn to the Block Blanche movement, which is gaining a tremendous head of steam. You see what can happen, though, with a close vote, 9-8 for Jay Clayton. But the Block Blanche movement is really important. And who's leading the charge? Who's out in front with the pitchforks and the torches? The Epstein survivors. Of course they are. Who has the moral authority and courage more than the Epstein authorities to call for the block of voting for Todd Blanche? Who? No one. They're the living embodiment of the scandal, of the child sex trafficking cover-up and the cover-up of the cover-up by Todd Blanche and his Department of Justice and Donald Trump to protect his client because of his relationships with the leaders of that who were friends of his, of that child sex trafficking ring and more. Of course, it's not going to be the other major scandal is Jan 6, the Jan 6 fund and the release given to the Trump family. Who's the living embodiment of that? The Jan 6ers? No. So you've got to have, and their willingness, this 25 or so Epstein survivors out of 1,400, like people like Danny Bensky, who I'm going to have the honor of interviewing, I think this week. I think this week is my Danny Bensky interview. I think it might be on Thursday on Legal AF YouTube channel. I've had Danny on before. No, I was not surprised that they picked Danny Bensky to testify against Todd Blanche. And then Todd Blanche, because he was forced into it or it was choreographed with Tom Tillis, was forced to meet with the Epstein survivors. And like a schoolboy dragged to the principal's office or a person walking around with a stone in his shoe, he let it be known immediately he didn't want to be there. It was degrading and insulting and patronizing to the Epstein survivors. That didn't help. In fact, if you wonder what I'm talking about, rather than me comment on it, let's play a clip of the Epstein survivors talking about their meeting with Todd Blanche.
It wasn't substantive. It was not productive. It very much felt like we were just taking the box off of the meeting.
I didn't expect to walk out of the meeting feeling the way that we feel right now. It was demoralizing, to say the very least.
His attempt at empathy and compassion really came off as patronizing and condescending. It was very clear he was taking the meeting because he wants this promotion.
Well, I couldn't put it any better than that. And when I have Danny Bensky on for our audience, we'll talk to her about that. Todd Blanche filed answers to 441 pages of questions by the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I got my hands on them. I'm making my way through them now. Two things that popped out already. One, at least he answered the question of who won the 2020 election. Of course, he answered it with the pat answer that the MAGA give, which is Joe Biden was certified by Congress and the Electoral College as the person who won. I'm like, oh my God, can't you just say that the winner was Joe Biden? Spare us the robotic programming, that you've been given. It's like the Manchurian Candidate. So I'm making, so that was one. And secondly, he admits in response to a question from Cornyn that he is not independent. He will not be an independent from the president, attorney general. He thinks that's a bad thing. He thinks he's just a regular cabinet member that's not independent and that Donald Trump controls. Well, I'm glad he said it out loud. I mean, there's other things in there that I think are really, really interesting, including his responses to Tom Tillis. I'm not sure he's got all the votes wrapped up. The vote is going to be the end of this month in about 8 or 9 days. They'll first fill the seat vacated by Lindsey Graham's death on the Judiciary Committee. And then they're going to vote on that with that committee 12 to 10. It'll be 12 Republicans, 10 Democrats. But Cornyn has said today, as we just put up the headline, I'm not satisfied with the answers. And what the answers he's talking about is not just the ones in those little 10-minute clips that we've been playing. It's the 441 pages. Let's see if I can show you what that looks like. This is part of the 441 pages I have organized. And these are all single-spaced questions that he needed to answer. Of course, there's a lot of, I reject the premise of your question. He's able to answer it. He's about as straight as a corkscrew, Todd Blanche. He answers a few of them straight. For the rest of them, it's a lot of see above. It's an active investigation. There's a grand jury process. I follow the law. The Department of Justice always follows the law. I'm like, really? Because that's not what we've been watching for the last 540 days plus. So Cornyn, still on the fence. Tom Tillis, I don't think that's what he had in mind when he said you better meet with the Epstein survivors or I'm not going to vote for you. Pissing them off and crapping on them and victimizing the victims was not quite, I think, what Tom Tillis had in mind. And even if they voted for Blanche and voted him out of committee, it doesn't mean they couldn't take back their vote under public pressure. That's where we come in. And vote against him on the Senate floor. That could happen. It's happened in the past. And everybody that I've spoken to and all of the groups that collaborate with Legal AF, NAACP, ACLU, and the Democracy Forward, senators, attorneys general, they all say the same thing. Pick up the phone and make a pest of yourself. Go to your Congress offices. They're going to be home for the summer. Be a pest in the Senate office in your area. Okay, go to the town halls. Email, phone the senators. Tell them to block Blanche. We're going to be doing a little bit of a programming note again, along with Not Above the Law. We're going to be hosting the live stream of a major Block Blanche event Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be sort of doing the intro for it. It's going to have Dick Durbin, Senator Dick Durbin, Representative Ro Khanna, Representative LaMonica McIver. We have Norm Eisen is there, Lisa Graves from Court Accountability Action and Legal AF. We've got one of the Capitol Police are going to be there. You're not going to want to miss this live stream. We're going to put in the notes a link to it. So you guys, and actually, if my staff could do it, put a link in the chat to the live stream. And if we can get an asset up before I'm done talking, it would be good to show people what I'm talking about. So that's going to be on Thursday. It's under the live tab right now for Legal AF. Set your reminders. You're not going to want to miss it. And at the end, it's a major motivator and call to action for people to do something to block Todd Blanche from being confirmed. The other person who's working hard to get Todd Blanche exposed and blocked is our friend and colleague, Katie Phang. Katie Phang's lawsuit is far from over. In fact, some of the best parts of it may have just begun, because yesterday in a, what's the legal term I'm looking for? Piece of shit, 2-page filing by Stan Woodward. Remember him? He's now the number 2 in the Department of Justice under Todd Blanche, but he used to be Walt Nauda's defense lawyer in the Mar-a-Lago case. That was the Butler body man that got also charged with conspiracy obstruction and espionage. He also represented a lot of Jan 6ers. Yeah, he's number 2 in the Department of Justice now, and they parachute him in all the time in order to handle some of these cases where they're losing. So in Katie Phang's lawsuit, they had to file, because the judge gave him one more chance to avoid contempt, one more chance to avoid a fine, having already granted her preliminary injunction. 5 major categories of documents related to the Epstein files, not produced by the government and not adequately explained in their filings. Judge ordered them to translate the foreign language documents in an international child sex trafficking ring. Didn't do it, didn't even mention it in their two pages that took them 7 days to write with typos. Again, I'm not making this up. It's up on Legal AF Substack. So you've got foreign language documents, the handwritten FBI notes for 4 different interviews of a woman who claims that when she was 13, she was sexually abused by Donald Trump. Yeah, we'd like to see those. That's part of the Epstein files. The redaction log, how about that? How about 200,000 pages catalog about why you blocked them out? And so we understand it, and so we can challenge it on a log. Nope, don't even mention the failure to do the log. And so all they said to the judge is, oh, Katie Phang's hyperbolic, and we're not. I'm not making this up. This is the extent of it. When they're not attacking the judge outside the courtroom, they do that all the time. Oh, he's a headline chasing judge. Emmett Sullivan, headline. Has anybody ever heard of Emmett Sullivan before we started covering him on Legal AF? Headline chasing? I don't think so. And I had the great pleasure of interviewing Katie Phang, who's away from the country, but working her butt off on a busman's holiday, working. And I interviewed her. It's going to be going up tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern time on Legal AF YouTube channel. But here's a clip.
Judge Sullivan ordered him to do so in the preliminary injunction. And I think that is really important to show that Todd Blanche knows he's up shit creek. He just wants to try to gaslight the court and the world into thinking that they're actually wearing a real white hat of justice, when in reality, what are they hiding, right?
What are they hiding? That is a very good question. You know, you don't work overtime the way that Todd Blanche is working in the Department of Justice if you don't have something to hide. If you're completely blameless and there's nothing in those files that are of any great concern that we haven't already known, you'd release them. That is how Donald Trump could have gotten the monkey off his back, right? That this is the pink elephant in the corner or whatever. But he never could do it because he knows there's things in there, as he's confided, according to reporting in other people, he knows there are things in there that are bad for him and bad for others. And that's why they keep playing this ridiculous game of hide and seek. But thankfully, Katie Phang and her lawyer, Brendan Ballou, who's been on with me as well, this is the last piece of paper, this 2-pager that they filed. It took them 7 days. I can't wait till Marc Elias, who's about to join us after the break. I can't wait to talk to Marc about this 2-page page and a half filing by Stan Woodward. It's going to piss off Emmett Sullivan, Judge Sullivan. I mean, I could just see him about to bellow. How dare you come into my courtroom with this thing that Katie and I joked that if this was handed into us by a junior associate or a mid-level associate in our law firms, we might have fired them. Like this is a reply brief to Katie Phang's paper. And any day now, tomorrow, early next week, Sullivan, I think, is going to lower the boom on Todd Blanche. And of course, we'll be around to report on it. And then as we were coming on the air, Alan Dershowitz always finds a way to make himself both the center of the story and take the hump position. He famously was Epstein's lawyer when he wasn't a Harvard Law, whatever. Epstein's lawyer, according to reporting like Julie K. Brown, he was busy abusing survivors and victims and trying to attack them and claim that they were sexual harlots. I just saw him recently say exactly this. So I don't want people to think he's going to come after me like CNN. He literally said that these were women, girls who knew what they were doing and, I don't know, got what they deserved. I mean, he almost said it. I mean, it's ridiculous. So when Dershowitz now is not a tremendous MAGA Trumper, He was, he was supposed to appear before the Oversight Committee hearing with James Comer, and he didn't. And it pissed off Comer. In fact, Comer has said he's going to subpoena Dershowitz. Dershowitz came up with some fake story about his lawyers told him he shouldn't appear. Well, now you're going to get a subpoena. Because now that the Epstein survivors have been all over the Senate and all over the House, you're not going to be able to get away with, I couldn't make it. Especially when he's everywhere else. He's everywhere else. There's some talk show nobody's watching in New York on radio. He appeared there, but he can't appear to the House Oversight Committee to do justice for the Epstein survivors. Of course he can't. He's already attacked them as being as asking for it effectively. He's disgusting. Comer's got to get Dershowitz under oath and subpoenaed as soon as possible. The next segment after our quick break is going to be all about voting, which is where I started tonight's podcast. Voter cases that are out there, the election integrity database, error-riddled as it is, this Olive Garden scenario that they're running in red states. Like Olive Garden polices its all-you-can-eat pasta bar more than Democratic states, blue states police voting. I'm like, I don't know what the F you're talking about, but we'll talk about that. And the revelation today, and New Jersey came out with it to their credit, that there were a number of people who were registered to vote that shouldn't have been. I don't know, it was like 3,000 or 4,000 people out of millions, and 400 or so that voted. But it's been caught. They're going to be prosecuted. It wasn't outcome determinative. It's within, 0.001% or whatever. But of course now Trump's like, this is why I need the databases. So I want to talk to Marc Elias about all of that as well. And then at the end of the show, I want to talk about Peter Navarro suffering a setback today. Couldn't happen to a nicer MAGA Jan 6er than Peter Navarro at the appellate court. And I'll give you an update about the Biden tapes and all of that. But so many different ways to support what we do on the intersection. You're doing it already. You're here. You're listening. You're watching. Come over if you're a watcher, if you're if you're an intersection YouTuber, come over to the audio podcast. That's wherever you get your audio podcast from. Plug in the intersection, hit download or subscribe. That's it. And we need more. There it is. We need more downloads. Eat more chicken. We need more downloads for this podcast. The views are outstanding. It's often 300,000 to 500,000 a week, but audio downloads still drives a lot of traffic, if you will, and it's very, very helpful. So that's one. Legal AF, the YouTube channel that I curate. Early voting has started there. We're trying to get to 2 million subscribers by the midterms. We'll do it. We'll do it with your help. Check right now whether you are a subscriber or not. Hit the free subscribe button, and that'll help us. Substack, Legal AF Substack. I do a live report every day. We've got all the filings under Filings AF. I had Lev Parnas on today. I have an amazing cast of characters that come on with me and talk at live when I'm not doing my own commentary. But you're going to like everything about Substack and Legal AF Substack. So come over there and support us as well. And then we've got our pro-intersection, pro-democracy sponsors handpicked by Jordy Mycelis and me. And let's take a break for them now. A lot of people hear about GLP-1 medications and assume they're out of reach because of the cost, so they never even look into treatment. But there may be more affordable options than people realize. Roe helps eligible patients find the lowest cost path to FDA-approved GLP-1 treatment, whether that's through insurance coverage or lower cost cash pay options. Roe's free insurance checker lets you see which GLP-1 medications are covered by your insurance and whether a prior authorization may be required. You don't have to be a Roe member to receive your coverage support. And if insurance doesn't cover treatment or you don't have insurance to check, Roe also offers lower cost FDA-approved cash pay options, including GLP-1 pills. Before being prescribed medication, patients must complete an online medical visit lab test if needed and qualify for medication based on their BMI, lab results, medical history, and the discretion of a Ro-affiliated healthcare provider. One thing I really appreciate is that Ro makes it simple to see what's covered before making a decision. Go to ro.co/intersection to see if you qualify. That's ro.co/intersection to get started on Ro. Go to ro.co/safety. That's ro.co/safety for boxed warnings and full safety information about GLP-1 medications. One of the very best investments I've ever made for my health has been getting better sleep. And my Lisa mattress has made a real difference. At the end of a long day, it's the place where I can actually unwind. It's supportive without feeling stiff, comfortable without sinking, and I wake up feeling more rested and ready to tackle the day. Lisa has a lineup of beautifully crafted mattresses tailored to how you sleep. So whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or somewhere in between, there's an option for you. They're meticulously designed and assembled right here in the USA, and they back everything with free shipping, easy returns, and 120-night sleep trial. Go to lisa.com for 25% off select mattresses, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code TRUTH, exclusive for my listeners. So that's LEESA.com, promo code TRUTH for 25% off select mattresses, plus an extra $50 off. And when you use our code, you're supporting our show. And we are back, and I checked on Legal AF YouTube channel. We're already up to 1,170,000, adding a number of new people during this particular show. And I thank you for that. Speaking of being thankful, I'm thankful for people like Marc Elias being on planet Earth, talking about his work with his law firm side in defending our right to vote every hour, every day in lawsuits, primarily appellate court up to the Supreme Court and the rest. And also just an expert commentator in Clearinghouse about what the Republican and MAGA are up to. You know, the announcement about Chinese interference in 2020, which was all a ruse, then led, we saw, to simultaneous announcements of election integrity employees or volunteers being hired, and Mark Wayne Mullen holding back money unless there's the SAVE Act is passed and all this other bullshit. And so what we're watching is a sustained artillery heavy fire by Donald Trump, his Department of Justice, his Homeland Security, his Director of National Intelligence, to try to undermine faith in the elections and try to scare the crap out of us and make us try to stay home and not vote. We're not going to let that happen. And people like Marc Elias are leading the charge. Let's bring in Mark.
Hello.
Hello. Look what I got. I've got my Duke Law alumni bottle.
There it is. There it is. I don't think I have any.
I went to the reunion. I went to this year's reunion.
Yeah, no, I got nothing for you.
I'm glad you got a lot for me. Trust me, our audience has been waiting with bated breath for your arrival. So we were together a couple of weeks ago. Some new developments I wanted to talk about.
Every day's new.
Every hour.
Every day's new developments.
My people were talking to your people like, what do you think Mark and Michael are going to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. What time is it? I mean, anything is new. The two things that I want to start with are the election integrity database and this whole election integrity network thing that was the fevered imagination of people like Cleta Mitchell and other election deniers. Kurt Olson, now embedded deeply within the White House, leading it there. Cleta and her people outside, along with others. This is a broad cabal that's out there. And then I read this thing about, we'll get to New Jersey in a minute, but I read this thing about the Olive Garden that they're making I guess primarily to red states, I don't know, blue states go to Olive Garden too, about voter protection. Why don't you pick up with that? And then we'll talk about how you're anticipating they're going to use the New Jersey revelation about some people ended up who are not citizens on the voter rolls and maybe even voted, how they're going to use that against you in your cases.
Yeah. So this Olive Garden thing, I have to say I didn't see coming. I've been to Olive Garden. I've never had to show ID to eat at Olive Garden. But the right wing has sort of seized on the idea that I guess Olive Garden is selling some kind of, all you can eat pass. And, when you buy the all you can eat pass, they want to make sure that you are the one eating off of the all you can eat pass, I guess. So maybe they ask for ID. It's very unclear what exactly the origin of this is. But, what this fundamentally speaks to is Donald Trump and the Republican Party's strategy for 2026, which is they're not going to inspire voters. They're not going to persuade voters, and they're not really going to turn out their voters. So, politics is, as I recently wrote for Democracy Docket, like elections are a game of inches. And their way of gaining inches is not to increase, like I said, Donald Trump's popularity, but rather to decrease the number of Democrats who are able to vote. And so they have found a number of clever ways to try to target Democratic voters disproportionately to Republicans. So it targets all voters, but harms Democratic voters more than Republican voters to disenfranchise them. One of them is this combination of proof of citizenship, which, you hear Donald Trump talk all the time about, with a very strict, unforgiving type of voter ID. And, I wrote about this for Democracy Docket. I did actually a YouTube video about this you could check out. And the point I try to unpack is that when Republicans say, look, photo ID is common, photo ID is popular, they don't really connect it up with what it is they are proposing. So, Cleta Mitchell, you mentioned, she and her organization put out a model set of laws. And, to their credit, they are actually pretty straightforward. They want to prove citizenship every time you vote via photo ID. Well, here is my message to you. Unless you live in one of 5 states that borders Canada, your state doesn't issue a driver's license that can prove citizenship. Real ID does not prove citizenship. In fact, there's a clip on the internet of Mark Wayne Mullen saying real ID does not prove citizenship. And that's because real ID just means you're essentially able to travel on airplanes and have been sufficiently vetted. But non-citizens can get real ID driver's licenses. So when you hear Republicans say that they want photo ID, what they are saying is they want to make it nearly impossible for people to vote using even a driver's license. And certainly when you then get to married women who change their last name, though they are harmed more. When you talk about who has passports, it disproportionately negatively impacts Black voters versus white voters. And all of this that I'm describing is just an effort by Republicans to chop off the margin of Democrats relative to Republicans. It has nothing to do with ID. It has nothing to do with eating unlimited Italian food at Olive Garden. It's just straight out voter suppression.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure they would have loved to use Cracker Barrel if they could have figured out something that Cracker Barrel was doing with IDs. But no, that we have a thing. I mean, I talk about this, and I know you do in different ways to our audiences. We have voter protection, so to speak. I mean, voter ID protection. It's called under penalty of perjury in prosecutions. And those that want to commit that crime are allowed to commit the crime. And then prosecutors, if they're not caught before by many layers of, including showing up, and actually voting. And if they still are able to vote, there's plenty of prosecutions that happen after an election. The big thing is that none of this fraud, whether it's 400, 4,000, even 400,000, is outcome determinative fraud. We're talking about a 0.001 or 0.0001, depending upon what we're talking about, level of fraud. So we already have a sufficient panacea or cure for this particular illness. What you don't do is you don't build a nuclear bomb because you have a fly in your house.
Yeah.
And destroy the house.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, more often than not, when we talk about, voter ballots being rejected or people being turned away from the polls, we are almost never talking about fraud. Like, we are by and large talking about people who are eligible voters. They are entitled to vote, who for one reason or another are not able to jump through a sufficient number of hoops in order to vote. So, when we talk about someone who, for example, casts a mail-in ballot and that ballot is rejected, 99.9999% of the time, that is a lawful voter. That is just someone who forgot to sign their outer envelope or mailed it too late for it to be received on time. So we need to like disaggregate fraud from the myriad ways that the system can frankly fail voters, and Republicans find new ways for the system to fail voters, and therefore increase those numbers. The most common voter fraud, and this is going to come as, maybe news to everyone, the most common quote unquote fraud are committed by husbands and wives and parents and children, right? Which is, your absentee ballot comes in, your wife knows who you're going to vote for, and you have been lazy to return it. And so your wife marks the ballot and puts it in an envelope and mails it in. Okay, that's like literally what I've just described as the single most common form of voter fraud. And I don't think, like, this is not to excuse it, it shouldn't happen, but like, it's not exactly a nefarious plan. Or a parent who applies for an absentee ballot for their spouse or for their child, knowing that they want an absentee ballot, they send in an application, even though they are not the person who sought the application. Again, I'm not here to say that is like best practice, but that is the vast majority of what we're talking about. The thing you mentioned in New Jersey was not voter fraud. It was the state screwed up.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as we can tell,
the motor vehicle, the DMV screwed up.
Yeah, essentially, as far as we can tell, and it's still early, but as far as we can tell, a bunch of non-citizens showed up for driver's licenses. Totally legal.
Right.
They filled out the box that said, I am not a U.S. citizen. Totally appropriate. And then the DMV vendor flipped that box without them knowing, without those people knowing, flipped them to citizens rather than non-citizens. That's not the fault of the person who registered, or in this case, the person who saw the driver's license. It's not a fraud scheme. It is an error by the Department of Motor Vehicles vendor in that happening.
By the way, when you need a affiant to support you on that matter, having lived in New Jersey for most of my life and having sat in Department of Motor Vehicle, Eatontown, New Jersey, shout out. I'm happy to tell you about how that could have happened.
Now, I'll tell you something about that Eatontown, New Jersey DMV. It is one of the few ways to turn to get to the other side of the road.
Marc Elias, how do you know that?
Right, because what you need to know about New Jersey, if you're not from there, is they have designed all of their roads to make it impossible to cross over.
Jug handles.
Go ahead, explain.
No, it's no explanation. I just have the name for it. It's called the jug handle.
Right, which is that you have to go what? You go through the intersection and then double back.
You've been on Highway 36 in Eatontown?
I have been almost everywhere in the Garden State. I grew up in Suffern, New York, which is right on the New York border between New York and New Jersey. In fact, if anyone's familiar with the song Johnny 99, which was written by Bruce Springsteen, he talks about the Mahwah Ford plant being closed. And that was right on the border of Mahwah, New Jersey.
Another good reason we get along. By the way, that's where I got my driver's license at 17.
In Eatontown.
Eatontown.
Yeah. So I've said this. All of my jobs growing up were in New Jersey. And as a lawyer, I know this is going to surprise you, but it's actually not a bad place. Like there's not a shortage of need for lawyers.
True. I didn't see. I learned whole new things about you.
Yeah.
Talk about this. Catch us up on the voter cases. I think you won another one since we were last together. And then did we touch on the election integrity database and why it's all riddled with errors?
Okay, so the first thing in terms of voting cases. So we've had a couple of different categories of victories. The first is the Department of Justice is now 0-16 in their efforts to get their hands on state voter files. They filed 30 lawsuits. They are now 0-16. So, hope springs eternal over there at DOJ. But my law firm, we are undefeated, obviously, in representing voters and groups of voters and protecting their information from being turned over to the Department of Justice. States run elections, not the federal government. There is no role for the federal government here. This is a state function. And that's what the Constitution says, and it is how we operate as a country. The second category of cases, though, I do want to sort of highlight, which is, I've litigated countless numbers of vote by mail cases with Republicans, against Republicans. I have fought with them over signature matching. I fought with them over dated, misdated, undated ballots. I fought with them over ballot drop boxes, deadlines for absentee ballots. I mean, if there's something involving absentee ballots, I have litigated against Republicans over it. And the Republican Party decided that they were going to try to target laws in 19 states that allow ballots that are postmarked by election day to count, even if they come in the days afterwards. And they brought a case in Mississippi, not because they cared about Mississippi. I think they thought that they'd get an easier run in Mississippi than in swing states, and that perhaps I wouldn't be paying attention. I did pay attention. We intervened in that case. That case went to the Supreme Court. We won. That's the Watson case. But what's happened since then, and this is the update that I want to give you, is, Republicans had pre-positioned two cases that had already been filed and were ready to go when Watson came down. One targeted California, one targeted Illinois. Both of them were aimed at shutting off ballots postmarked by election day from counting in those two states. And as a result of the victory in Watson, both of those cases in the last week have now been dismissed. So Donald Trump may have his gripe about California. He may spread lies about California vote counting, but he has no legal claim to challenge it. And in fact, the effort that they had in place has now been dismissed. The other one I want to mention real quickly is we actually proactively sued Kansas, because Kansas had a 3-day grace period and did away with it and said, no, ballots postmarked by election day will not count, even if they come in a day or two afterwards. And we sued in Kansas and we won in Kansas. A Kansas state judge has now reinstated that 3-day grace period. And so that's like a real big win, And
on that one, Mark, what was the legal basis for your successful argument?
So state constitutional claims. What people don't realize is virtually every state in the country has a right to vote clause. And I expect that there may be some other states that will see similar claims to this in the near future. But it's a good example of like good news that's taking place a little bit under the surface. That the legacy media doesn't pay as much attention to, but which, in close elections, and there will be close elections in all the states I just mentioned, this can matter.
I'd ask you if you put a notch on your litigation bag handle for all the wins, but you wouldn't have a handle. I mean, you're just racking them up, and they do fly below the radar. Although people that, if you haven't already subscribed to Democracy Docket with Marc Elias's team, you need to. It is the fundamental source that commentators like me use to be updated in real time about what's happening out there in the election cases, and even cases that aren't cases yet. Just bad conduct and actions, or piecing together. Donald Trump does things intentionally in different fragmented pieces, hoping that we don't put the giant puzzle together. And you do a great job with your team of putting that giant puzzle together.
So I was going to text you off air about this, but I'll just ask you on air, because you are the master guru of all things YouTube and social media. I mean, you have the largest legal podcast YouTube channel in the.
Thanks, Mark. Gotta go.
In the world. So we just launched Democracy Docket. We launched a Reddit, And I was looking to see, do you have a Reddit? Like, we decided to do this because like there are not a lot of good platforms for communities. So Democracy Docket launched a Democracy Docket subreddit. And I was wondering if this is something you have already conquered.
I think that we talked about it back in the day, Midas and Legal AF, about a Reddit, and it just never sort of became the place for us. I'm not saying that it's not. I don't know much about that particular platform.
You and I are not of the Reddit era.
No. And I went on it, we used to get critiqued a lot on Reddit, and it used to piss me off, like Popok said this. And I'd be like, oh shit, what is that community all about? But we were early adopters of like Twitter, and then we hated Twitter for obvious reasons after it became X. And then we sort of, to be frank, just to lift the curtain here a little bit, YouTube, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're fortunate that we were early adopters of Substack, Midas first, and then Legal AF. And are you guys on Substack?
So we're not on Substack.
You got to be on Substack.
People are going to find this interesting. So the first is like YouTube. Obviously, I always say there are only two platforms that you're never going to outgrow: Facebook and YouTube, right? Like, what is it? Like 4 billion people are on Facebook every month. I'm not, by the way, not one of them. I don't have a Facebook account. If you see a Facebook account for me, you can ignore it. But YouTube, right? Like you're never going to outgrow YouTube. But the whole thing with Substack is we had already built, by the time people were really focused on Substack, we had already built our own tech stack. And, we're really committed to it because not that I don't trust the good people at Substack, but, I have been sold this will be a perfect open web platform. Have no fear, because like you, I was early on Twitter and spent a lot of time tweeting back in the day, when you used to have to put RT when you retweet. Right. Remember, and so we are not on Substack because we just want to control our own tech stack. And
you have an amazing, and people need to go on Democracy Docket. Maybe offline, you and I can talk about having some sort of Substack presence as well. I do a Substack live once a day, get a couple thousand.
But I don't understand why that is, because you get so many more views. The audience is like Mark. This is like Mark and Michael. This is guys. You want to know what we talk about off camera?
What we do.
Like your YouTube channel is so large. Like, what are you incrementally really adding with a Substack live?
Well,
a few thousand?
No, it's not that.
The million, rather to the millions you have on YouTube.
There's an immediacy, a real-time response that I can do on Substack that even if I get a video up in 30 minutes after an event, and it's a million other people covering it. So I have a connection with an audience. We're building a community, like an overlapping community, but some of it's unique to Substack. We got 150,000 subscribers on Substack. We're like top 30 of US news already. We put a lot of the content, not everybody's on YouTube, so we put a lot of the content from YouTube up on Substack. But we do unique things. For instance, here, I can't do this on YouTube. Everything you that I cover that you do, all the filings and the orders, we post on Substack for people to read. So it's that, and then I do a live as sort of extra content, and also I can do like, hey, breaking news, literally breaking news just happened 10 minutes ago, or I need to update a video that I just did because it got stale because of some other crazy crap that Trump or Blanche did. So it is another community building exercise.
This is why you guys are so much smarter than I am, because the person who totally agrees with you is Brian Tyler Cohn, who I know is a friend of the Midas Network as well, and someone I do a lot of content with. And he was just lecturing me about this yesterday. He's like, Mark, some people want to be on Spotify, so they're on Spotify. Some people want to be on YouTube, they're on YouTube. Some people want to be on Substack Live, they're on Substack Live.
That's right.
Like different viewers, consumers. When I say people, I don't mean the creators like you and me. I mean some people want to consume through one platform or another, and you just need to let them consume it where it is, rather than lecturing them about which platform is better.
Right. It's like candy bars. They come in all different sizes, from small to medium to large. And just to show you where you're exactly right, Ben and I used to kibitz about I just lost my train of thought about where we existed and who was watching. Oh, when we started the podcast, and Midas did too, as an audio only.
Oh,
in fact, 6 years ago, there's a joke I'll tell.
Really?
Oh yeah, I used to get dressed up because we used to record it on Zoom. I used to get dressed up, and Ben would show up like in a t-shirt, And after about 3 or 4 episodes, I said to him, how come you don't get dressed up for this? He goes, we're not doing video. I go, what do you mean? He goes, what do you mean? Why aren't we doing video? He goes, we're not. And then Midas did video, and then Legal AF did video. So when I said to him, and at the time, I think it's sort of changed now, but 5 years ago, there were people who only got our audio download, had no idea what we looked like, and didn't know we were on YouTube.
Huh.
Now, I think that's sort of changed. I think people
That's
know
ironic because I didn't know you were on audio only. I only watch you on video.
Yeah, we were started out as audio only, and then I convinced Ben when the brothers went YouTube. I said, "Why are we on YouTube? We should be on YouTube." And that's how that happened. So all that. So I hope people like this inside baseball stuff. I do.
Yeah, it's a great story.
What's the next? End it this way. I know you're being generous with your time. You got to go like now. Just end it this way. What should our audience be? What should they be watching? What is a couple of things they need to be on the lookout for through your organization, mine?
Yeah. So number one, the Republicans are going to try to exploit what happened in New Jersey with this vendor to try to justify all kinds of crazy stuff. So like, don't buy into the lies. Like, understand the facts. You can get them from Michael. You can get them from me. Hopefully, he and I will continue to have these joint appearances where we can kind of explain it together. But be skeptical when you hear those things. The second thing is Donald Trump's only going to get more desperate. And so the speech that he just gave was a failure. It was a failure to try to ignite energy behind the idea that there had been foreign interference. But Donald Trump doesn't go away, right? It's not like he tries it once and then he leaves. He will simply escalate. He'll escalate the lies. He'll escalate the tactics. So be on the lookout for that. And then finally, despite the wins we just had that I described about voting by mail is still under attack. In particular, the assault on the use of the postal service by the Trump administration remains very much a hot topic of litigation. There's a lot going on there, and maybe, Michael, we will cover that next time.
Oh, absolutely. I think the postal service is a great one for us to cover. Marc Elias, Democracy Docket. If this is the first you've heard of it, go on now and subscribe and help Marc. The content there and the reliability of the content is unmatched, really unparalleled. And then you'll catch Marc here. You'll catch Marc on with Brian Tyler Cohen.
And at some point, I'm going to announce this, and Michael's going to be like, "No, we're not." At some point, maybe Michael and I will do a joint in person in Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, that I'd love. I love that. I'd love in person anywhere, but definitely in Durham, North Carolina, our old stomping ground.
You'll figure the venue.
That's easy. Is Bullock's Barbecue still around?
I don't know. We're gonna have to.
We're gonna find out. Yeah. We're gonna find out. And separately, he has a law firm, Elias Law Group.
Yeah,
Elias Law Group. They have a website too. Follow them there. Marc Elias, thank you for being so generous with your time and with our audience, and I can't wait to see you again in the next week or so.
Same here.
Thank you, Marc Elias. This is because of you, our audience, vibrating on that same frequency. We're able to have the street cred to get people who want to come on the show, want to talk to our audience. There's no arm twisting going on. I have another programming note. I've got the new general counsel for the NAACP will be joining me on Friday for an interview. We just had the NAACP, who's going to be a more regular contributor and collaborator with us on the Legal AF YouTube channel, joining the American Civil Liberties Union as well. Senator Warnock, I don't make these things happen. You, the audience, makes these things happen. If it was just like, old curmudgeon Popok phoning up a senator or a governor or a congressperson or a judge, they'd be like, who? What? But when I say Legal AF, I'm your ambassador. And that helps us land it. Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania is going to be joining me in the next week or so. Just a tremendous amount of fantastic programming, all not only for you, but as a result of you, because of you. And so while you're here, a number of ways to support what we do. We've got for those that just heard about the Substack, you heard Marc Elias, join us on Legal AF Substack. Hit the button. Help us continue to grow. Let's get us into the top 10 of all U.S. news and politics Substacks. And I promise you, we won't let you down on the content side and never will. Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Literally, while we were on the air, we crossed over to 1,170,000 subscribers, adding 20,000 subscribers in the last 2 weeks. And again, that's all because of your fervent support and generosity of what you do. And we'll pull our weight, with our contributors. And one last kind of plug here. I think people know that I formed a law firm sort of dedicated to the intersection, Midas Touch, and legal AF communities. It's called, what else? The Popok Firm. There's a QR code. Hit the QR code. It's a brand new website. Same tireless fighters for you. Any kind of injury, negligence, medical malpractice, car accidents, truck accidents, God forbid the death of somebody in your life or your family, you're going to want to call the Popok Firm, and there's your opportunity to do it at www.thepopokfirm.com. So let me round out with just a couple of things to update here as we came on the air. Remember Peter Navarro, one of the architects of the Green Bay sweep, also known as the attempt to steal the election in 2020, along with Ken Chesborough and John Eastman. Yeah, Peter Navarro, who went to jail for 4 months, came out, wrote a book, and is now, I think, some sort of trade representative or trade and policy or tariff policy representative for Donald Trump. So he got convicted for not testifying to Congress and refusing to produce documents related to the Jan 6 committee. Okay. And he went to jail. Yeah. And so he decided he was going to, I think he got a pardon already, but no, he wanted to prove in a court of law that his conviction was unjust. So he filed an appeal. Yeah. Well, we just got a 37-page ruling from Judges Millett, Childs, and there's one more. If I find my note, I'll tell you who it is. It's coming. Millett, Childs, and Pollard, all Democratic president appointees, and they've rejected Peter Navarro's his appeal. This is what they said, and they kind of sum it up in the first page or two. In 2021, Peter Navarro, a former aide to then President Trump, published a book about his stint in politics. In that book and in promotional interviews, he took credit for devising a plan to leverage the vice president's authority, that would be Mike Pence, under the Electoral Count Act of 1887 to delay the certification. He called it the Green Bay sweep. Dr. Navarro's public statements caught the attention of the Jan 6 committee. The select committee sent a subpoena to Navarro that sought documents related to his book and public statements that ordered him to appear for a deposition. He claimed executive privilege, even though he wasn't in the White House, and refused to turn over the documents. After the deadline for compliance passed, the House voted to hold him in contempt, and a federal grand jury indicted him on 2 counts. Dr. Navarro moves to dismiss the indictment on the ground that President Trump had invoked executive privilege. The problem with that is he had no proof of that. I remember the judge at the time, Judge Mehta, I believe it was, said, okay, I get it. You say there was executive privilege that was invoked by President Trump. Where's the affidavit of President Trump? Where's the testimonial? Where's any scrap of paper, anything that tells me that that actually happened? Hearing nothing, that didn't come in to, and that got dismissed by the judge. After an evidentiary hearing, the appellate court concludes, the district court concluded that no such invocation of privilege had occurred and declined to dismiss the indictment. The district court also granted the government's motion in limine to preclude Dr. Navarro from arguing to the jury that he mistakenly believed he was not required to respond to the committee's subpoena. A jury found him guilty on both counts. Navarro appealed. We affirm. I mean, there's 36 pages of other analysis, but that sort of just tells you that judges wearing black robes, when presented with evidence or lack of evidence and facts, will do the right thing under our rule of law and to protect our democracy. And that's a good thing. It's going to piss off Donald Trump, and he'll have some, there'll be some rapid response 47. I'm sure it's already gone out about how wonderful Peter Navarro is and how corrupt the appellate court is. But we all know what that really means is that he's lost, just like he loses over and over again to the Marc Eliases of the world. That should give you confidence, that we're not blowing smoke or sunshine here. We're not being Pollyannish, but we're not blowing smoke or sunshine either. I have real confidence in people like Marc and dozens of other Marcs, from Norm Eisen to Democracy Forward to the attorneys general, Democratic. I just interviewed Rob Bonta about him getting a emergency temporary restraining order to stop the merger. Forget the merger, to stop the acquisition of CNN and all those assets at Warner by Paramount, the billionaire boys club, friends of Donald Trump. That's because 12 Democratic attorneys general joined forces and filed that lawsuit and won, just like they won to stop the acquisition of hundreds of local television stations, just like they won against Live Nation related to price gouging and sporting and live events. Who do you think's doing that? I mean, that's a rhetorical question. I know you do. I know you know who's doing it. These are the groups that have their hands firmly on the controls, know what they're doing, and are filing the suits that are being successful. I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, the American Civil Liberties Union, which I'm honored to have with us on as collaborators on Legal AF, I interviewed their political director. She said they have 25 tabletop exercises of doomsday scenarios involving Donald Trump and voting. And they are ready with drafts of papers ready to be filed on any of those scenarios. And I assure you, they are more creative about how diabolical Donald Trump is than even Donald Trump. Because at bottom, he's not that smart. And neither are the people that are left in the government. And so the brain drain, you know where all those top-level Department of Justice people are? In private practice, or working for the state attorneys general, or are working as state prosecutors. They're still around defending democracy. And speaking of defending democracy, you're not going to want to miss this Thursday. It's the first time we've ever done it with a group called Not Above the Law. We're doing, there it is, Block Blanche, live stream special. Senator Dick Durbin, Representative LaMonica MacGyver of New Jersey, Representative Ro Khanna, Cali. Oh, look, I got my picture there. Michael Popok. We just put that up. That's pretty good. That is right now under live tab for Legal AF YouTube. Legal AF YouTube, live tab, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 1 hour. You're going to get lots of information that you need to block Todd Blanche. It's going to be like a toolbox that they're going to effectively give you about how to do it. And they need your help to do it. That's why I wanted to live stream it. So join us there. I'll open the show, open the live stream, and then we'll go right into a heavy work, eat dinner before or lunch, whatever. Heavy working session about how to block Todd Blanche's vote, which is coming up probably the week of August the 3rd. And then lastly, as we end our night tonight, as the time has come, we got a ruling out of a 3-judge panel. Actually, just I guess to prove our point that judges are independent and judges do the right thing when they have the facts and law in front of them. Judge Srinivasan, who is the chief judge of the D.C. Appellate Court and is an appointee of one of the Democratic presidents, he just ruled against Joe Biden, along with a couple of other people on his panel, one a Trumper, Katsas, and are releasing the Biden tapes subject to a final appeal at the United States Supreme Court. 70 hours of musings with Joe Biden, trying to prepare for a biography, talking to his, not his ghostwriter, but his writer, Mark Schwanitzer. And those tapes ended up being turned over by subpoena or voluntarily by Joe Biden to Robert Hur, the special counsel investigating whether he had leaked classified information after he's vice president. And Judge Srinivasan, writing for the majority, said it's of great public interest that people know about it. And what are we going to see? We're going to hear a guy who recently lost his son, who has memory problems, talking privately and candidly in a house to his ghostwriter, his writer, about a book that he wanted to write. I mean, if you don't already have an opinion about Joe Biden, who's been in public life for 50 years, was a president for 4, a vice president for 8, a senator for 20, you watched him age in place in the White House. If you saw what happened at the debate, you saw what happened on the campaign trail. If you don't already have an opinion about him, this is not going to form one. And it's not going to change it if you have an opinion about him already. I already have a well-formed opinion about Joe Biden, which I'll keep to myself for right now. But, and I mean the entirety of his body of work, not just the last, year or two, or what he did to the Democratic Party in the final year. And so, this is just about the Heritage Foundation trying to execute on Donald Trump's plan to embarrass the Democratic Party, to undermine its idols, to go after the Barack Obamas and the Joe Bidens and the Hillary Clintons, and to try to make the party, weak and ineffectual, and make people run away from it because they're running away from the Republican Party and MAGA. And so this is their plan, and this is what they are doing with our taxpayer dollars and time. Anyway, I'm sure Joe Biden has announced that he's going to be taking an appeal up to the United States Supreme Court, and we'll see whether they're going to allow it. It was a 2-1 decision. The dissent reminded everybody that he wasn't indicted. He wasn't indicted. This is information that was obtained, it was referenced in the report, but not released by the special counsel. Certainly would never have been released had Kamala Harris become president and ran the Department of Justice. And that's where we are at. But I try to report on everything at the intersection, and I don't want people to think I was avoiding that. Sure, Hunter Biden won a couple of $1 million off of the Overstock.com guy for defamation. That's good too. Appreciate that too. But thanks for being here. Here's the programming list for Popok that you can follow. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, up on Legal AF YouTube channel, my interview with Katie Phang. Up right now on Legal AF YouTube, my interview with Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of California, and my interview with Brendan Ballou, who is the lawyer for Katie Phang and has filed other cases against Donald Trump, including one alleging bribery at the highest levels concerning the corporate merger of Warner and Paramount. I've got an interview with the head of immigration rights at the American Civil Liberties Union. Tomorrow, I interview Senator Warnock, Reverend Senator Warnock of Georgia, about all things Supreme Court and voting. You're not going to want to miss that as well. I've got Danny Bensky, as I said, joining me on Thursday. Just a action-packed group along with that Thursday night Block Blanche, Block the Vote for Todd Blanche stream that's going to be up we're hosting on Legal AF YouTube channel. So thanks for being here. I appreciate the generosity of your time and spirit. Until my next report, that's coming up in about an hour. I'm Michael Popok. Shout out to the Midas Mighty, the Legal AFers, and the intersectionists. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.